text for today is in Acts 27, verses 1 through 20. We won't read the whole thing. We will be going back and forth to it, and it's also our text for tonight. So, read it on your own. But since we don't want to be here till midnight, we don't want to read the whole story. That's one of those things that just gets you. But if you find Acts 27, verses 1 through 20, we will be referring to that off and on throughout this lesson. That is when Paul was being taken to Rome. Now, the lesson for today, both times, is going to be the storm. Now, most of us remember that it was not that long ago that they had a terrible hurricane in the Bahamas. It didn't hit everywhere in the Bahamas, but two islands that it hit, it devastated. And that should remind us just how terrible storms are. Storms can be devastating. Now, most people do their best to avoid storms. They evacuate their homes. When the warning comes on our TV about a tornado, we go to our safe spots. We do our best to not be in a storm. The thing is, that doesn't always work. Sometimes we're caught in the middle of the storm. Now the thing is, everybody has them. We like to think that I've got problems. Everybody has problems. Everybody has storms. Everybody has those things that come and just make life hard. Now we're going to read Acts 27, verses 6 through 14 right now, and we'll talk about what happened to Paul. Now this is he's already been traveling some. He goes, there the centurion found a ship of Alexandria sailing for Italy and put us on board. We sailed slowly for a number of days and arrived with difficulty off Snakes. And as the wind did not allow us to go further, we sailed under the lee of Crete off of Salmon. Coasting along it with difficulty, we came to a place called Fair Havens, near which was the city of Lasea. Since much time had passed and the voyage was now dangerous, because even the fast was already over, Paul advised them, saying, sirs, I perceive that the voyage will be with injury and much loss, not only the cargo and the ship, but also of our lives. But the centurion paid more attention to the pilot and to the owner of the ship than to what Paul said. And because the harbor was not suitable to spend the winter in, the majority decided to put out to sea from there on the chance that somehow they could reach Phoenix, a harbor of Crete, facing both southwest and northwest, and spend the winter there. Now when the south wind blew gently, supposing that they had obtained their purpose, they weighed anchor and sailed along Crete, close to the shore. But soon a tempestuous wind, called the nor'easter, struck down from the land. The fact is, it's not a matter of if you're going to face a storm. It's just a matter of when. A storm will come that will turn your life upside down and hurt. That's just a fact. Now, some people like to preach that if you follow God, Your life is going to be sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows, and nothing is ever going to happen to you, and you have this golden, beautiful shield over you. What a bunch of garbage. Turn to John 16:33. I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation. But take heart, I have overcome the world. We can have peace even in the storm. And we also want us to look at 2 Corinthians chapter 11, 23 through 28. That's 2 Corinthians chapter 11. And now verses starting with verse 23 down through 28. This is again Paul speaking. Are they servants of Christ? I am a better one. I am talking like a madman, with far greater labors, far more imprisonments, with countless beatings, and often near death. 5 times I received at the hands of the Jews the 40 lashes less one. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and a day I was adrift at sea. On frequent journeys, in danger from rivers, danger from robbers, danger from my own people, danger from Gentiles, danger in the city, danger in the wilderness, danger at sea, danger from false brothers, in toil and hardship, through many a sleepless night, in hunger and thirst, often without food, in cold and exposure. And apart from other things, there is the daily pressure on me of my anxiety for all of the churches. Does it sound like he had a bubble over him and life was not going to touch him? No. Sometimes we need to understand that trouble is going to come to us just because we are Christians. The devil doesn't care who isn't in the fight. He cares about those that are in the fight. If you're a Christian, you're the enemy. He doesn't care about those that are sitting over there and not doing anything. It's you he has to hurt. Storms often come into our lives when we least expect it. Boy, that's when it really hurts. And that's what we found back there in Acts 27. They had had their warning, but they were lulled into complacency. They had been warned, but verse 13 says, now when the south wind blew gently, supposing they had obtained their purpose, they weighed anchor and sailed along Crete, close to the shore. But soon a tempestuous wind, called the northeaster, struck down from the land. They'd been worried. They'd been worried. And all of a sudden, there's a gentle south wind. Perfect. Let's weigh sail, and we'll get where we're going, and everything is going to be wonderful. And then the wind was changed. And the storm came. They ignored Paul's warning. And they thought, yeah, it'd be good. South wind's coming, let's go. Very few people expect to be in the storm. They don't expect it, and that really hurts. Now, every storm is different. There's a lot of different reasons that storms come into our life. Storms come through no fault of our own. Paul warned these guys. This journey's going to be bad. We're going to have trouble. It wasn't his fault. He was a prisoner going to Rome. It was not his fault that he was in this storm. Paul and most of the crew and the other soldiers, it wasn't their fault. The ship's pilot and the ship's owner and the centurion said, we're going to go. And you went. It was not their fault. They didn't do anything to cause the storm. Sometimes good people get sick. Good people die. You lose people close to you. Little babies die. That's a storm. And it's not a thing that you do to cause that. It happens. Now, sometimes storms come because of other people. Paul, in verse 10 of the 27th chapter, warns them this danger is going to be bad. But the centurion, this is verse 11, paid more attention to the pilot and to the owner of the ship than to what Paul said. Sometimes storms come about you through the fault of other people. Paul and the crew and those soldiers would not have been in danger had people listened to Paul. Sometimes the storms we face are a result of the actions or decisions of others. Divorce is a decision of parents that affects children. Not their fault. They don't choose it. Those storms come. And it's not your fault, but they're there. And you've got to get through them. Sometimes storms come because of our own decisions. Verse 12. And because the harbor was not suitable to spend the winter in, the majority decided to put out to sea from there on the chance that somehow they could reach Phoenix, a harbor of Crete, facing both southwest and northwest, and spend the winter there. That was a bad place to spend the winter. The harbor didn't face the right way. So they made a choice. It was too late in the season for safe sailing. They had spent too much time from Caesarea to Rome, if you drive it today, takes 46 hours. Now, the sea route is shorter. And we have trouble understanding because we make trips in our cars everywhere. We can jump on a plane. It won't be a place in hours. They were sailing longer than 14 days. It's much shorter going from Caesarea, even if you follow the coast, than it is going way over by land and getting over. But that's still a long distance. They didn't want to spend the winter. Can you imagine that? Well, we're on our way to California, and we're going to spend the winter in Flagstaff. We don't think that way. We go anywhere. We never think of, I'm going to take a trip, but I may have to spend 3 months someplace before I can go again. Storms are bad. But, like they say, every cloud has a silver lining. Every storm has an opportunity. Verses 15 through 22 of that chapter. We're going to read about how bad the storm was. And when the ship was caught and could not face the wind, we gave way to it and were driven along. Running under the lee of a small island called Calcadia, we managed with difficulty to secure the ship's boat. After hoisting it up, they used supports to undergird the ship. Then, fearing that they would run aground on the Syrtis, they lowered the gear, and thus were driven along. They were going and going. Now I'm going to skip down to verse 21. Since they had been without food for a long time, Paul stood up among them and said, Men, you should have listened to me and not have set sail from Crete and incurred this injury and loss. Yet now I urge you to take heart, for there will be no loss of life among you, but only the ship. For this very night there stood before me an angel of God, to whom I belong, and whom I worship. And he said, Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand before Caesar. And behold, God has granted you all those who sail with you. So take heart, man, for I have faith in God that will be exactly as I have been told. But we must run aground on some island. Paul took on a leadership role. When everybody was frightened, scared, he was able to stand up and seize an opportunity. But he didn't just seize an opportunity to tell those people how to survive this storm. He did. Stay on the ship. He'll survive the storm. But he took the opportunity to talk about his God. He used that storm for good. Paul used what he had seen in other times to help these people through their problems. It said in verse 25, So take heart, men, for I have faith in God that will be exactly as I have been told. He knew that God had always been faithful to him, so he was able to use that to help them. Storms are terrible. There are things in life that are truly terrible that happen. But everything that happens can be turned to a better outcome. I remember a preacher once saying, and I've always remembered this, he said the only difference between a stumbling block and a stepping stone is how you use it. The difference between a storm that destroys you and a storm that makes you stronger and does good is how you choose to use it. To take the opportunity to turn it into good. Quite a few years ago, although it doesn't seem like that to me and a whole bunch of other people, this country was in the middle of something called the Vietnam War. A lot of people died. A lot of people suffered. And in the overall picture, not a cotton-picking thing was gained. And yet, if you go to Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam today, you will find people who are worshiping the Lord God. Because in the midst of the worst storm of their lives, these young men took the opportunity to plant the gospel, and it's still there. Maybe you're in a storm right now. Maybe life is slapping you around and hurting you. If it's not today, it'll be tomorrow. It's going to happen. But it's up to you to choose what you do. Now, sometimes you can evacuate. Sometimes you can get away from the storm.